Welcome to Whimsy Woven Stories, where imagination takes flight and every tale is a journey into wonder. Here, we breathe life into the pages of timeless stories and create new adventures that spark joy and curiosity. Whether you're a lover of classic fairy tales, fantastical adventures, or heartwarming fables, you'll find a story to capture your heart and stir your imagination. Join us as we weave a tapestry of whimsy and wonder, one story at a time.
The old .30 caliber rifle may have been made in Italy. Ted Vincent had placed it in a tree growing on a hill overlooking the estate pool. Ted was wearing rubber gloves that reached his elbows. He had a small monocle-like device that allowed him to view the pool. However, he was only 70 yards away from several lounge chairs set up by the pool. The pool was on the estate of Byron Diamond, a millionaire entrepreneur. The tree was outside the estate. Close enough, though. Byron Diamond was the employer of Cara, Ted's wife. She was a beauty with dark blonde hair and a nice figure. She was going to spend the weekend at Diamond Estate, as she had done for the past 4 weekends. She hadn't made a secret of it, having told Ted of her intentions beforehand to have a sexual liaison with her boss. Really, only on weekends when Diamond's wife Miranda was doing charity work. Ted didn't know if Diamond's wife knew about Cara Vincent's visits. There was staff at the estate, so she probably knew. Diamond and Cara approached the pool. Diamond was in swim trunks, and Cara was wearing only a thong, and a rather skimpy one at that. It wasn't the first time Ted had seen the two of them half naked. Over the last few weeks, he had thoroughly explored the grounds of the estate. Now he felt it was time to decide the life and death of the two lovers. Diamond was as handsome as a photo model, with a slender, muscular build. He and Cara made a spectacular couple, especially as they were now. Ted could understand to some extent why Cara had latched onto Diamond. But understanding didn't mean accepting it. From the beginning, when she'd announced her intentions, he'd been adamantly opposed. He and Cara were each 37 years old. They had been married for 16 years and had twin daughters, Claire and Beth. The children were each 15 and looked just like their mom. At the moment they were at Ted's parents' house, where they were spending the week before going to soccer camp, they had inherited their father's athletic ability. At this point, Ted was allegedly bicycling with his best friend Miles Jacobs. The two had been close friends since first grade. Now they were partners in a business that sold financial advice to companies and some individuals. The MT firm was founded as soon as Ted graduated from college. Miles didn't go to college. His parents couldn't afford it, and Miles wanted to succeed in the world. He was an outgoing guy and was a successful salesman. As part of their firm, he sold their services. Those services were excellent, and the company was growing. Now both men were quite wealthy. Family men with children about the same age who went to the same school. Miles was married to Robin, the love of his childhood. While Robin was the childhood sweetheart of both Miles and Ted, Miles won that competition. Ted never really understood why. Miles and Ted were very similar in appearance, both swarthy, 6 feet tall, medium build. Who could choose? But some people just fell in love. It happened with Miles and Robin. Ted was used to it. He'd found Cara in college, and she'd been everything he'd ever needed. Until a few months ago. Miles was waiting on the bike path some distance away, and Cara was about to get a big surprise. Ted saw Cara and Diamond embrace. The hug turned into a kiss. As soon as they broke the kiss and Cara moved a short distance away, Diamond's chest exploded. Diamond's body ripped away from Cara's. She screamed, covering her face with her hands, and fell to the ground. There was blood everywhere. She crawled over to the pool and dove into it. Ted had seen enough. He climbed down from the tree and quickly ran up the hill, throwing the old rifle into the bushes on the way. He took off the stock case and gloves and stuffed it all into a plastic bag on his belt and jogged up the hill to his bike. He jumped into the saddle, headed for the main bike path, and rode out onto it, first looking around to make sure no one was around. Ted biked about 3 miles and joined Miles. They continued on their way. At about 6 miles, Ted left a plastic bag in a dumpster behind a gas station. Then they finished their drive and pulled up to Miles' house. The rifle didn't bother Ted. He assumed the police would find it. They wouldn't be able to get DNA. and he was sure nothing could be traced. He'd had the rifle for years. He'd gotten it from a guy he knew who was dying and didn't want to leave the weapon to his family. There were 2 rifles and 2 pistols. The other rifle was also from World War II, but bigger and more valuable. Other than the rifle used today, the rest of the guns were in Ted's gun safe along with the weapons he inherited from his grandfather. That rifle had never been in the safe. Ted kept it separately in a stash in a closet in the garage. When Kara announced her intentions of having an affair with Diamond, Ted immediately thought of that rifle. Over the next week, he took it out on his backcountry property to make sure it shot accurately. A little work was required. He sawed off the number on the inside and was sure the rifle was good enough for its purpose. Robin was there to greet them when they got to Miles' house. She expected them to be back at 2 in the afternoon, and they arrived just in time. She made a cold beer for each of them and asked, "How was the trip, guys?" Miles smiled at his wife. "It was great. The track wasn't very crowded, and we had a good workout 4 hours or so." Robin hugged them both. She was a nice-looking woman their age. She had dark hair and was a little overweight. Ted had always found her attractive. They usually flirted a little. But she was Miles' woman, and all 3 of them knew it. The men drank beer and showered in the pool house, and then they sat around the pool. Robin asked Ted, "How long do you think this Kara thing will last?" She knew about what Kara did on the weekends. Ted told them both. They were his closest friends and the people he turned to when he was in trouble or needed calm advice. In Robin's opinion, Ted should have kicked Kara out right away. But Miles thought otherwise. He suggested they wait on the divorce until they could protect the company and until the twins were older. But Ted already knew what he was going to do. He had no pity for guys who loved other people's wives, especially his own. So, having devised a plan, Ted talked it over with Miles. Together, they went over the details. Ted answered Robin's question. "I have no idea. But Robin, I hope to continue our relationship with Nora." Robin repeated, "I still think it's time for you to dump Kara." Robin and Kara have always been cool to each other. The 4 of them did socialize, and so did their children. Miles' oldest son, George, was a year older than the twins. His younger son, Ben, was a year younger. Both boys seemed to find the girls attractive. But the mothers were far from close. Kara had her own circle of country club friends. Robin had her friends from the Democratic Party and several book clubs. Their social gatherings, however, usually went well. Kara was always sweet and interested in Robin's hobbies. The odd thing was that both women worked at the same job for most of their married life administrative assistants. That had ended when Kara had been hired at Diamond 2 years ago. Robin was still working at her old firm. As the 3 of them sat there, Ted was absorbed in thinking about recent events. He wondered about his reaction and why Kara had betrayed him like that. She'd been working for Diamond for 20 months now, and Ted hadn't suspected any problems. Their sex life, always good, hadn't changed. Kara didn't work late or go on business trips. She went to the club most weekends, but regularly came to the girls' home soccer games. Ted always attended all of the twins' games. So Ted was shocked when Kara sat down next to him late one night and said. Ted was instantly wary. He wasn't the type to react emotionally to things. To most people, he seemed stoic. His parents were the complete opposite. They argued and fought like street dogs. Then they had wild sexual reconciliations. Ted was the only child in the family, and his reaction, honed over the years, was no reaction at all. Such was also his initial stoic reaction to Kara. He didn't say a word and stared at her. It didn't faze her. It had happened before. She continued. "Byron and I had developed, a crush on each other. His wife goes away every weekend, Friday through Sunday night. I'm going to visit him at the estate when she's away. Starting this Friday. I have no idea when it's going to stop. He'll probably get tired of me. But I need this, Ted." Ted didn't say anything. In fact, inwardly, he was quite calm. That was because he'd realized as soon as she'd laid out the plan that he couldn't stop her, nor would he try to. He also knew that Diamond was dead anyway, and so was their marriage. What he hadn't completely decided was what to do about Kara. He'd always loved her. She was a pretty good mother. but he knew full well that she indulged her desires and cared about her status. He had seen this, but had not paid serious enough attention to it. Now those negative qualities were at their peak. It was unexpected, and not even in her character. He pondered his decision regarding Kara and almost immediately remembered the rifle in the garage closet. Kara was startled when Ted, after about a minute, smiled. He had that reaction when he thought of the rifle. Kara was not only amazed but knocked out by his smile. It wasn't a fake smile. She hadn't expected it. She said with some heat, "Do you think there's something funny here?" He smiled at her. Not at all. But that smile. She felt a shiver at that smile. Ted stood up and asked, "Have you had sex yet?" Karaposet. "No, well, a few kisses. That's all for now. I'll sleep in the guest house. Let me know when you're done with the rich boy. Then we'll see what's left." Saying this, Ted went up the stairs to gather his things for the night. Kara was sitting in the living room. She was not happy about this turn of events. Nevertheless, it was something she wanted to do, and she intended to do it. However, she felt lonely being left alone in bed. It was Wednesday. Only one more night to go. She was so looking forward to the weekend with Byron. She longed for him. He was younger. He was 30. He was rich and educated. And he was well built. She'd realized this when she'd seen him working out in the office gym without a shirt on. Her idea was to say to him while his wife was away for the weekend. She realized that this situation would continue for a couple more months. Then, depending on how they got along, maybe they'd make some sort of permanent arrangement. Maybe so. Maybe not. She loved Ted. She loved their family. She liked how well he treated their daughters. She liked that he'd given her a good life. But she had been restless for a while, and she was really drawn to her boss. She wanted it, and she was going to get it. She was sure that she and Ted would work it out somehow. Ted had a lot on his mind as he had gotten very little sleep Wednesday night. The twins were going to be visiting friends all weekend. He'd do some recon, check out the weapons. Maybe he could get a little distraction. Thursday for lunch, he went to his usual cafe. A nice young woman, Nora Hansen, sometimes had lunch there. Sometimes she and Nora would have lunch together. Nora was about 25 or so, had a nice athletic figure and dark hair. Something about Nora reminded Ted of Robin. Something in her looks and her demeanor. Ted and Nora had been flirting a bit for a few weeks. However, until Kara announced her intention to cheat, Ted had absolutely no intention of pursuing Nora. But now, Nora had been there that Thursday. She was just sitting down when he walked in. He ordered a ham sandwich and sat next to her in the booth. This was different. Usually, he sat across from her. Nora wasn't stupid and was used to guys hitting on her. She couldn't help but pay attention. She felt pleased that Ted sat next to her. She had been saving a seat for him for 2 weeks, but so far he either didn't get or didn't want to take the hint. She knew Ted was married, and yet he was a temptation. Nora turned to him and bestowed a murderous smile. "Something's different, huh?" He smiled back at her. "Huh? My wife decided to fool around with her boss." Nora put her hand on his thigh. It was a hard thigh. "And I was wondering if you wanted to have dinner and dancing Friday night." "Oh, Ted, I'd really like that. Very much." Soft voice. Soft. A silly grin appeared on his face. He felt stupid when he realized it. She rubbed his cheek. He was hard as a rock, and he was doing his best to contain himself. He stroked her cheek and kissed her lightly on the lips. "I better not stay here. We could get arrested." They exchanged phone numbers. Back at work, Ted felt like a schoolboy. Some of the coworkers noticed it. Kara noticed, too, when Ted walked briskly into the house after work. Once again, her husband, with whom she had lived all these years, surprised her. She said, "I made lasagna and some salad." She saw it as a peace offering. She was convinced Ted would take her adventure hard. The more unexpected was his response. "Thank you. I am starving." His mood had clearly improved. Kara was suspicious and wondered if he'd already done. What? Moved on. God? He washed his face, and they sat down to eat. Kara made up her mind. Do you feel like? Well, I'm going to his house tomorrow. He cast a glance at her. He decided to put some effort into it. Ted felt he owed it to the children. It's not too late to stop, Kara. I firmly believe you'll regret it in the end. She hesitated. This was a different Ted. He was saying it with complete sincerity and confidence. For a moment, she was overwhelmed with love for him. She fought against it. I need this, Ted. He smiled at her. I don't believe you, and I use the word need to mean the same thing, Kara. She stood up and put the plates away. I hope you see your path clearly and go to bed with me tonight. No, I told you. You'll see me when you're done with your lover. We'll see. Kara was disappointed. She had visions of a pleasant night of lovemaking that would bring an amicable end to this phase of their marriage. But it wasn't destined to come true. She realized she was done with it when she talked to Ted the other day. She was sad about it. Ted paused for a moment before heading to the guest house. Maybe something would come back then, Kara. But probably not. He headed out the door. Kara sat at the table and thought. It became clear to her in that moment that she was jeopardizing her marriage. Before, she had cherished the thought that things could go back to normal when her affair ended. Now she knew that was naive. If she continued to date Byron, it was likely that her life would change dramatically afterward, and there was no real way to predict what form it would take. She had almost decided to give up the affair when the thought struck her that even if she gave it up, Ted might never treat her the same. Yes, he would never see her the same again. She decided to go for it. Friday night, Kara packed a bag as she left for work Friday morning. All the essentials, as well as a new, tight-fitting nightgown. She was nervous when she saw Byron at work, but he smiled broadly at her and kissed her in his office. No doubts or second thoughts. Your husband. Doubts. I did have them, but I want this so badly. Byron was thrilled. They left work in separate cars. The staff at work weren't supposed to know about the weekend plans. Kara arrived at the estate at 6 in the evening. She parked. Byron opened the door for her and invited her into his luxurious home. When the door closed, he enveloped her in a hug and kissed her. She melted into him. She was so excited. They headed for the stairs. Byron picked her up in his arms and tried to carry her up the stairs, but he had to drop her halfway down. She realized Byron wasn't as strong as Ted. She hurried upstairs and headed for the master bedroom. The bed was made already. Byron again enclosed her in his arms. They kissed. Kara quickly removed her dress. She wasn't wearing stockings, so she was only wearing her bra and panties. And here she was naked with a new man for the first time since she had gotten married. It was so exciting. Byron was shirtless and bootless. Kara kissed him. She looked at him for a few seconds. Then she climbed onto the bed and beckoned Byron over. He, wasting no time, stood up so that he could start the game. Kara was shocked. Maybe it had happened quickly, but it was intense. She caught herself thinking that the sex was just as intense as it had been with Ted. Well, almost as intense. She was sure they would reach new heights later. Byron was ecstatic. He had won this married woman over and had her well attached to him. He knew he was a better lover than any she had ever experienced. Just knew it. Kara decided to see what she could do to get Byron ready for round 2. She slid off the bed and started kissing him. It took her a while to get the hang of it. His eyes were closed and she kissed them. Another good round. Afterward, he offered them dinner. He had robes for them. They went downstairs. A small feast was prepared and Kara found herself starving. They ate and talked. Did you like it? Byron was not original. Karanotet. Of course I did. And you? The very best. Kara sang out just the best. Better than all the others. Byron didn't know that song. He looked puzzled. Kara and Ted often sang it to each other. She was a little embarrassed that she used it with Byron. After dinner, they went back upstairs and watched a romantic movie in the bedroom. Byron wanted more sex, but Kara wanted to see the movie through to the end. Then they did it again. Kara was impressed that Byron was able to do it 3 times like that. The third time, however, impressed her a little less. Ted had picked Nora up from her apartment behind the wheel of his classic MGB convertible. It was his hobby, one of them. Nora was delighted with the trip and with Ted. He looked great in his blue suit, and Ted was thrilled with her spectacular dark red dress with a deep neckline. He brought her to the Wellington Hotel, which had a nice restaurant. They had a great dinner and then went to a dance floor nearby. The place had a combo, playing a mixture of old rock and a little swing. Ted was athletically built and had always been a good dancer. One of the reasons he liked Kara was that she was gifted in that way, too. So was Nora. Nora was light on her feet and oh so sensual when she moved. Ted was utterly fascinated by her. More and more she reminded him of Robin, only younger and a better dancer. They danced until at some point they both suddenly wanted to find another place. Nora got in the car and looked at him. "Take me to your house." "Yes, take me to your place." Ted restrained himself during the trip, driving very carefully. 15 minutes later, he opened the front door and let Nora in. They didn't manage to get out of the living room. Nora quickly undressed and Ted returned the favor. Then they stood staring at each other. Nora was the first to pounce on Ted and flopped him down on the couch. Nora had never experienced anything like it. She kept repeating, "Oh God, oh God." Finally, Ted felt a volcanic force building up in his stomach. Nora was almost losing consciousness. Ted, too, blacked out for a moment. After a while, Ted was ready to go again. In the morning, they woke up to sunlight. They showered, combed their hair, and lay in bed until they were hungry. Ted made breakfast. Nora just stared at him as he did it. She was in love, and she knew it. She didn't trust it, but she could feel it. Then she said it to him as he served eggs and toast. "I'm in love with you, Ted. I just have to say it." Ted was surprised. He thought for a moment and said, "I believe the feeling is mutual, even though it's hard to believe." "Zofast, they're done with eggs." "What now?" Nora asked. Ted smiled, guess. He lifted her into his arms again. Kara and Ted's weekend continued in the same vein as it had begun. Kara was pleased with Byron, who had given her a lot of pleasure. Ted thought he was head over heels in love with Nora. On Sunday afternoon, Kara and Byron cemented an agreement to see each other the following weekend. Ted and Nora began to contemplate how to proceed. They set a day for the following Friday depending on what Kara had planned, and they agreed to meet for lunch each day. Ted dropped Nora off at her apartment. She was a lawyer and despite her youth could afford a nice place to live. Meanwhile, Kara drove home for Byron's. Ted had just returned when she walked through the door. They stared at each other. Ted had that smile. He couldn't help it and Kara saw it. She asked, "How was your weekend?" "Lonely. How was the Richie Rich?" Ted grinned. If Kara had been honest, she would have said he was exciting, but you're better. Instead, she said he was great. "I'll be gone again next week. The girls won't be back until next Sunday night." She knew something had gone wrong in her plan. Ted was too happy. She was also nervous about not knowing how to tell the girls what was going on. They ordered Chinese food for dinner. During the week, Ted met with Nora every day for lunch. They had a plan to go to the concert on Friday and spend the weekend at her house. Ted and Kara communicated mechanically throughout the week. At work, Kara and Byron were discreet. At home, she hoped Ted would soften and invite her to bed. No chance of that. Every night he slept in the guest house. In the evenings he watched baseball or read. Didn't socialize with Kara. In fact, he ignored her. Frozen marriage. While at the guest house, he'd go out the backyard and look around Diamond Manor. He had Google Maps and night vision goggles. He began to build a diagram of the place in his head. He also bought a directionally amplified sound device with cash. The next weekend, he and Nora had a great time, but then she had to leave for Sunday lunch with her parents. So in the morning, they had their last meeting, and she left. Ted went to Diamond Manor and did some more research. He had seen Diamond and Kara at the pool many times. It seemed to be where they spent a lot of time. He also discovered that the directional device was working fine. He managed to overhear some of what they were saying to each other. He found it boring. On the third week, the twins were home. Of course, they had noticed that their parents had effectively split up. At dinner that Tuesday, Claire asked Mom, Dad, what's going on? Kara said, Bye, we're having some problems. We're going to work it out. Don't worry about it. Then the girls looked at Ted. He shook his head. The truth is, your mother decided to have a sexual relationship with her boss. So I moved into the guest house. What will happen in the long run has yet to be decided. Kara was angry at Ted for laying it out like that. However, there was nothing to object to. She said, I felt like I needed AA. Beth interrupted a new experience. Sounds like it. How could you, Mom? Kara got up and ran up the stairs. Are you getting a divorce, Dad? I don't know. It's not finalized yet. But, can you keep your mouth shut? The girls said yes. You promise? Ido. I have a new friend. I'll introduce you this weekend when Mom goes to see her new boyfriend. The twins were smart. Claire said, You mean you have someone you want us to meet? So this must be very serious, right? Claire said, until Mom went, I never would have met Nora. But Mom went. Then I did. And, who knows who ends up winning with who? Beth smirked. Claire asked, How did you manage to work so fast, Dad? It's not like you. I kind of knew Nora from the lunches. Maybe, I felt insecure or like I didn't qualify. And I felt like Nora wanted to go on a date with me. She really wanted to. So the girls fell into silence. A thoughtful and not too comfortable silence. Ted let them ponder. Eventually, he asked anything else at this point. Claire asked when. When are we going to meet her? I'll organize something for this weekend. You have a game on Saturday afternoon, right? Oh, yeah. Maybe Nora and I will come. It's a big story, Dad. You're not shy about showing your face with it, even to our friends' parents. Ted wasn't surprised that the girls turned out to be so neat and smart. He really believed they could figure it out. Nothing is carved in stone now. I like that woman. And your mom ruined our marriage. But the situation is unpredictable. They left it at that. Kara never came downstairs. Kara returned to Diamond Manor on Friday. She'd had a pleasant weekend. But sometimes she got bored. Byron's sexual repertoire was more limited than Ted's. Kara tried to introduce him to something new. But he wasn't as receptive. It frustrated her. There was something else. Byron could do this at best 3 times a day night. And he was fast and didn't like cuddling. That left a lot of time. Since their affair was supposed to be secret, they couldn't go out. So they stayed at the estate. It was big enough for hiking, and they had a pool. They spent a lot of time there. That same weekend, Ted took Nora dancing again. This time they went to a local club. One of her friends, Laura Blake, was there. Laura and Ted were introduced to each other. Ted wasn't really going to keep his relationship with Nora a secret. They had another terrific dance, then went to Nora's house. Ted left at 1 a.m. The twins were already waiting for him. A wide smile appeared on Ted's face when he saw them in the living room. You girls have a game tomorrow. You should get some sleep. Beth said we've been waiting for you. Claire added, I see you have a big smile. I bet you, Ted interrupted. Never mind. Go to bed. The game's at 10. Nora will come with us. Nora arrived at 9:30. She was nervous. Ted was nervous. The twins were nervous and insecure. When Ted opened the door and let Nora in, there was a long pause where no one said a word. Nora looked gorgeous. Finally, Ted said, Nora, this is Claire and this is Beth. Nora smiled hello. I think this is a little awkward, but maybe we have something in common. I played soccer in college on offense where Beth asked, No haset Notre Dame. Ted was stunned and the girls were impressed. Beth was the troublemaker and she had a soccer ball in her hand. She threw it to Nora. Nora somehow picked it up with her right foot and with her knee threw it back at Beth, who caught the ball. Nora smiled. Beth and Claire smiled too. Ted said, Eat him. Let's go then. The girls were good at soccer. They usually teamed up in the center of the field. Together, they tried to control the game. Ted and Nora watched. Well, Ted watched. Nora, on the other hand, could hardly contain herself and bounced around in her seat. If the other parents didn't see her before the game, they saw her when the game started. It was a tense and exciting match. The other team showed their best and took a 2-goal lead, but the home team fought back and equalized with just 2 minutes to go. The opposing coach made a substitution. Beth was standing next to Nora. Nora called out to her and said they're going to try to pass on your side. Get through and get out. Beth looked at Nora and nodded. Nora's analysis proved accurate. Beth intercepted the pass and headed for the goal at speed. Ted was bouncing, but Nora wasn't. Nora only watched. Beth approached the penalty box and saw that the other striker on the right was a yard offside. So she made a false lunge to the left, lured the goalkeeper out, and then kicked the ball into the net. The game ended right after that score. Ted and the girls celebrated with the other parents. Nora took a step back. When the bouncing subsided, Beth walked up to Nora and asked, "How did you know?" Nora laughed. "I was watching the game. I see the game when I'm watching." She patted Beth on the arm. 3 or 4 other parents noticed all the interaction. Joan Drake asked Ted, "She's the twins' coach?" Ted said, "No. She's a friend of mine, but she played in the game." The girls' coach, Lena Holmes, said, "Of course she did. I remember her. She played for Notre Dame." On offense, Ted called Nora over and introduced her to everyone in the room. No one asked any uncomfortable questions. In the car on the way home, Claire said, "Daddy, you guess what they're all wondering?" Ted laughed. "Let them." The 4 of them stopped for a snack of pizza. Then Ted and Nora drove to her house for about 3 hours. They came back with Chinese dinner. Ted was a little worried about the food choices. After dinner, there was another long conversation about soccer. Beth Googled Nora and learned about her college career. Nora went there for 3 years. Around 9 p.m., there was an awkward silence. Then Ted said, "Girls, Nora and I are heading to the guest house." Beth said, "Keep it down, please." Nora laughed. "I promised to do my best to do that." After Nora and Ted left, the girls talked it all over. They really liked Nora a lot, and they could see how much their father liked her. It seemed to them that the family life they had known was over. It was an abrupt transition. Claire said, "It's not Dad's fault, is it? Mom went off to have fun with that jerk." I really hate her for that." "Me too. I can only wonder what how could she just do that?" "Selfishness. That's all it is. We have to accept change, Claire. Maybe it won't be so bad. I like Nora. Daddy likes her too. But they haven't known each other long, right? So we don't know. Maybe Mom and Dad will make up." Maybe, Beth said dryly. They went upstairs and watched the video. Then they fell asleep. Ted and Nora had another wonderful time. In the morning, they made breakfast for 4. Nora gave the twins an impromptu soccer lesson in the backyard. Then she had to go visit her mom and dad. Ted and the twins had a long discussion about how to proceed. Ted tried to reassure them about their mom. He also assured them that even if there was a divorce, they would stay here in the house. He also told them that they would still have plenty of contact with both parents if they split up. They did discuss how the girls should react to Kara. Ted tried to get them to at least act civil. Then Kara appeared in the doorway. Another awkward moment as everyone stared at her. Then Kara said, "I want you girls to know that I love you. And I love Daddy too." She did. Beth replied quietly, "Mom, you say that, but what you're doing says otherwise. I can't explain it all to you. I just needed it. It's not going to last forever." Claire said, "Oh, I'm not so sure about that." Kara walked into the kitchen, saying she was going to make dinner. The other 3 looked at each other. No one said much of anything. Dinner was delicious, but tense. Kara asked about the soccer game. Claire said Beth scored the winning goal. "Congratulations. Tell me about it." There was an awkward silence. Then Ted said Beth saw the pass coming and intercepted it. Went all the way in and scored past the goalie. Kara praised the girls. Ted cleared the table and the girls went to their rooms. I went to the guest house. Kara said Ted realized. You could spend the night here. No way. Are you done with that asshole? I don't know. Maybe I am. It wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. We stayed home all weekend. You know, Kara, people are going to find out. They already know something's wrong. I don't want to embarrass you. And he doesn't want his wife to know. That's too bad. Ted, just a little longer. It'll be over. Kara, please understand you ruined our marriage. It's over between us. So stay as long as you want. Just know that he's all you have right now. Kara was shocked by this blunt statement. She sobbed just once. She ran upstairs. By morning, she decided to treat everything as normal as possible. She had to go to work. Ted did too. The girls were getting ready for a trip to their grandparents' house and then to a nature camp. Ted had lunch with Nora and explained what happened after she left. He then headed home to help the twins pack. Kara's plans for the day were disrupted when her friend Joan called. Kara, who was that nice young woman who came to the soccer game with Ted, got up off. What young woman? Oh, hey, I see. She's a former soccer player. Very pretty. We've all been wondering where you've been. Damn it. Calm down, Kara. She and Ted there were no obvious signs, you know that. Oh no. Well, they haven't told me anything about her. What's her name? Nora. Kara, where have you been? I've heard some things I can't believe. Like what, Joan? Like the fact that you left Ted for your boss. I did not. I didn't dump him. Well, Jane Bright has a cousin at the club who works for Mr. Diamond at his house. The cousin said he has a woman there on weekends when his wife's away. Shit. So it's you. Jesus. Cara. Jesus. This can't go on too long, Joan. Only on weekends. You're stupid. Ted already has another woman. And you know what? I don't blame him. She's younger and hotter. Your daughters seem to already know her. You screwed up royally. Kara was truly shocked. That evening, she and Ted dropped the girls off at his parent house. The ride home was quiet, but as they entered the house, Kara lunged at Ted and slapped him. He stepped back. What the fuck? You replaced me. You bastard. You're complaining. What did you expect? You must have prepared for my departure. How long have you been messing with me? I only knew her from the cafe. We didn't even kiss until you went crazy with your boss. So, I'll fuck you, bitch. Kara took off. Ted went to the guest house. Then he went out the back door, dressed in dark clothes. He found a good place to watch Diamond at Tree. This night he intended to test the sound amplification device. He set it up and waited until he saw Diamond and his wife on the terrace overlooking the pool. They were sitting and drinking wine. As he joined in their discussion, he heard Diamond say, "And it won't last long. You have your boy, Toy." Miranda replied, "Only because you started it. This one is something like a fourth or fifth slut." Diamond said, "I support your style, Mira. Don't mess it up. Why are they always married? Do their husbands know?" "Yes. I make them tell their husbands. I like it better that way. When we have social events at our company, I smile at all the assholes. Someday, boy, you're going to cross the wrong." Oh, what are they going to do? They could divorce their wife, but they all have kids. So they don't do that. They just accept it. So what if they do get divorced? That's too bad. You're one of the biggest assholes in the world. A real asshole. But I'm good, aren't I? Miranda laughed. You think so? My Deshaun is better. Oh, bullshit, Diamond laughed. From that point on, the conversation came to a standstill. Ted got off and walked away. Up to this point, Ted had thought that engaging Diamond was not only unnecessary, but risky. He didn't think it was necessary. After all, now he had Nora. Kara and her stupid antics allowed it. Maybe he thought he should thank Diamond. But the conversation he just overheard had reignited the burning anger in him. The next day, he went into Miles' office and they talked. Nora spent the weekend with Ted and the girls. The couple slept in a guest house, but otherwise they socialized with the twins, almost like a family. After Saturday's game, there were more soccer lessons. Saturday night, Ted and Nora had a fantastic time in bed as usual. As they lay in bed, Nora asked, "What's going to happen next, Ted? I mean, maybe it's weird to ask this, But are we exclusive? Ted laughed. You mean, am I sleeping with my wife on the side? Nora giggled yes. I'm determined not to do that. I'm a one-woman man. You'll be that woman if you want to be. I feel like I'm destroying a marriage. You two have been together so long. Not you. As soon as Kara left for her boss, I was done with her. After a few hours, actually, very quickly, I felt it was liberating. And I reaped the benefits. I'm glad I did. The next morning, they had another fun run and then went off to make breakfast. Nora went to her parents' house a little early to help her mother with an unusual cake. Ted told the girls he was going for a bike ride with Miles. He would see them later. He gave each one a big hug and left. Earlier in the week, Ted had prepared his rifle and left it by the tree, loaded and wrapped. As he stashed his bike and headed that way, he half hoped someone had taken it, but everything was still there. He had serious doubts, even when he was cornered. But he kept remembering the asshole's conversation with his wife Miranda. And then he saw his nearly naked wife making out with the guy. He thought, fuck this. It's time to get this shit over with. As Ted and Miles sat drinking beer after the bike ride, Robin ran out of the house. I saw it on TV. Diamond's been shot. He's dead. Diamond is dead. Ted got up quickly. What about Kara? They said a woman was present, but she wasn't hurt. Miles exclaimed, oh my God. He pulled out his cell phone and turned on the news feed. Miles had kept Ted's cell phone with him the entire trip. It was in his belt pouch. He waited until Robin looked at his phone and handed Ted the phone. But Robin saw it. She didn't pay much attention to it at the time. Ted tried to call Kara. There was no answer. He said, I better get home. Maybe someone called. He left on his bicycle. When he got home, the landline phone rang. Hello? Is this Ted Vincent? Yeah. This is Detective Harvey from APD. There was a shooting, but your wife wasn't hurt. You're talking about Diamond. A friend of mine told me. What happened? I can't comment on that. Mr. Diamond is dead. Your wife is here at the station. She's in complete shock. Can you come get her? Sure. Where to? Main office. 3rd floor. Go to the front desk. Ted put on shorts and a t-shirt over his bicycle gear. In his belt pouch, he had his wallet and cell phone. He grabbed his car keys and drove off. He had no idea what to expect. He was invited for an interview. He was told he could see Kara after everything was finalized. Detective Harvey turned out to be an older white guy who looked trim, though gray. He had a partner, Stella Blaine. She was an attractive brunette, large and tall. Ted sat with them in a small room and answered all their questions. They asked how his day was, and he told them about it, the bike ride and everything. Then they asked if he knew Kara was involved with Diamond. Yes. Did you? How did you feel about that? It was Harvey. I didn't like it. But I moved on. What does that mean? I have another interest. Another woman. Oh. So you have an open marriage? Ooh, no. When she announced she was doing it, that's how I reacted. Do you own a gun? Yes. I have a gun safe. We're going to need to take a look in it. Okay, cell phone rings. Well, we'll go home together. The police found out a lot of details about the bike ride, addresses, and who else Ted was meeting. Then they left him in a small room for a while. The door was locked. Ted just sat there looking at his phone. After about 15 minutes, Harvey came back and asked if they could look at the phone. Ted said, I have something on my phone about work that I don't want to make public. Nothing illegal. We could get a warrant. He decided to just let them take the phone. They told him it would take 30 minutes. Then they took him to Kara's apartment. She was dressed in a t-shirt and jeans. Not hers. She looked scared. Ted said, Kara, are you okay? No. Oh my God, he was shot. I was right there. There was blood everywhere. Imsuri, Kara. As soon as they're done with my phone, I can get you home. Okay, Ted. Pause. Ted? I'm sorry about all of this, but we can talk on the way home. He put his arm around her. Soon the detective brought the phone, and the couple left the station. When they were in the car, Kara asked Ted, Did you shoot him? No. I may not regret killing him, but I didn't. Kara stared at him. I know you. You could have, but you found that girl. So, I just didn't do it. Did you see him get shot? No. I heard a gunshot and it went off. Now she was crying, sobbing. Ted stopped the SUV in the driveway. He escorted Kara inside and took the police officers who had pulled up to the gun safe. They examined the weapon and asked about ammunition. There was an unopened box of .30 caliber ammo. They were not interested in other ammunition. When they returned to the street, Harvey turned to Ted and said, "We'll take DNA and fingerprints from the rifle we have. I'd advise you to stay out of this, Mr. Vincent." "Well, I don't know about any guns and I didn't shoot anybody." "All right, then. I'll see you around." Ted went inside to deal with his wife. Before he did, however, he called Nora and told her what had happened. She knew some of the details. He asked if she would come by later once Kara had calmed down. Then he called his parents and his daughters. They had a long discussion about the events of the previous day. One of the questions was whether the twins would go to nature camp next week. It was decided that they should go to avoid any of the commotion that could be expected. Kara took a long shower. Ted inquired about her mental state. No wonder. He was waiting for her when she came out in her robe. This must be difficult. "Did you wash yourself off enough?" She smiled. "No, but the water ran out." "Yes, I guessed. What can I do for you?" "Well, maybe we could order a pizza." "I'm starving." Ted made it. Kara looked at Ted over the pizza. "I was thinking about you. I'm not so sure you're innocent. Where were you today?" "On a bike ride with Miles. I told the cops. He might lie for you." "Oh, but he doesn't have to lie. I admit I have some anger issues sometimes, but I didn't shoot that asshole. He was a jerk. You were right about that. Are you going to divorce me?" "Maybe. I mean, you threw that in my face, Kara. After all these years, you needed some rich boy." "I agree that he was good looking." "He was. Honestly, Ted, he wasn't. He didn't really live up to his looks." "Oh, really? Really? You have some woman, Nora. I'm told she's younger and more attractive." "Yeah, she's quite attractive and athletic. She played soccer in college, and she just picked you up right away. I bet you saw her before I had Byron." "No, maybe around the same time. We went dancing first." "Why are you interested?" "I probably won't have a job." "You'll leave me?" "I know it. I have to live, and we have a prenup. I won't let you starve. And maybe you'll have a job. Maybe. Miranda's probably not too happy with me." Ted's cell phone rang. It was Nora. He walked into the living room. Kara followed him at some distance. She could hear their declarations of love. If she had been wearing shoes, she would have kicked herself. As Ted urged Nora not to come, Kara entered the room. "Let her come, Ted. I think it's time for us to meet." 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang and Ted let Nora in. Kara was already dressed. She looked tired, but still attractive. The two women looked at each other for probably a full minute. Then Nora said, "I'm sorry. You must be very shocked." "Thank you. I am. It's all so confusing. You took my husband. You abandoned him. It's not my fault." They were separated by about 10 feet. Ted took this position so he could intervene if necessary. Kara was trembling. She started sobbing again. Nora stepped toward her and hugged her. Kara cried on Nora's shoulder. Ted was stunned. Nora sat Kara down on the couch, maintaining contact. There was room for Ted, too, and he sat down next to Kara and hugged her, too. Kara sobbed, gulping convulsively for air with her mouth. She was sobbing. So stupid. "I'm sorry. Such a fool." Kara's crying subsided. She stood up a little and asked Ted, "Do you think the hot water is ready?" "Probably." She got up to take another shower. After she emptied the tank again, Ted gave her a pill, and she fell asleep on their bed. Ted and Nora went to the guest bedroom. They didn't want to leave Kara alone in the house. They watched the news at 10 o'clock. Diamond's murder was being widely covered. As it turned out, Diamond had many affairs with married women who mostly worked for him in one way or another. So Ted was far from the only suspect. Later on CNN, it was revealed that someone also had business reasons to eliminate Diamond. And finally, the internet speculated that Diamond's wife might have been involved. Ted turned off all media after 11. He and Nora went to bed. Neither of them really wanted to have sex first. But Nora was silent. Ted woke up early and checked on Kara. She slept until 9, then took a shower. At 10, all three of them were sitting at breakfast eating pancakes Nora had hastily made. Mozart played on Nora's cell phone. She answered, and it was the police to arrange an interview. Nora asked Kara and Ted, "Should I ask them to come here?" "Kara nadie. We'll be able to get the latest news." So at 11, Detective Harvey and Blaine came in and took Nora to a private room to take her statement. It took about 25 minutes. Then they all met in the living room. Kara asked, "Is there any news on who did it?" Blaine said not yet. "A lot of people had a motive, including you, mister." "Vincent, we've been over this," Ted frowned. "Yes, well, thank you all for your cooperation." They left. Robin called to say that the police had come to take a statement. They were polite, but persistent and thorough. Ted told her he'd see Miles at work. All three of them were at a bit of a loss, not knowing what to do. "Should I leave?" Nora asked. Kara said no. "I understand. Ted might want you to stay." Ted nodded. They all sat on the back patio and drank coffee. Kara's calmness had returned to her, but she seemed sad. Ted and Nora seemed to be expecting more trouble. Kara held on to her temples. "I keep seeing him bleeding. He still hasn't moved. I wonder if I'll always see it." Nora seemed to want to comfort her. "In my course on the psychology of grief, they said that images are the most enduring things, but they fade and fade over time. I sure hope so." Kara's voice trailed off. "Have you heard from work?" Ted asked. "No, I was working directly for Byron. I was really acting as a sort of dealer of goods sent to him. Some things I let through to him, and other things I took care of myself. Whoever takes over, he's going to need someone like me." "Who would that be?" Nora asked. "My only guess is Miranda. I know what was in his will because I signed it as a witness. She gets everything except for a few things for his mom." "Okay. Do you want to work there?" "Yeah, like I said, I need to support myself." "Huh?" Ted looked at Nora. "Well, until you get back on your feet. Did you two sleep in the house last night?" Understandably, that bothered Kara. Nora nodded. "In the guest room. I hope it lasts for a while longer. Until I get back on my feet." There was a double meaning in those words of Kara's, and neither Ted nor Nora missed it. Ted didn't mind. Things will work themselves out, and the girls will be back for a while next week. "Nora, they told me you went to their game." Kara remembered. "Yeah, it was exciting. I missed it." Kara sobbed again. "I feel so stupid. He had a string of women. He manipulated all of us. Well, he was a handsome asshole. You made a big mistake." Nora tried to calm her down a little. Ted said, "I guess you weren't happy for a while. Here at home, not at work." Kara thought for a moment and said, "That's true. I don't know what caused it. Maybe something like the grass is greener." She paused. Then a big hole opened up and swallowed my life. She got up and ran inside. After a while, the clinking of pots and pans was heard. Kara had baked a chocolate cake that was ready by noon. Eventually, Nora and Ted came into the kitchen and watched, talking incoherently about something. They ate sandwiches while the cake cooled enough to be covered with frosting. That's how the day went on. Nora cooked burgers for dinner, and Kara made a salad. The three of them did something, but hardly talked about the future. Kara went to bed at 9 o'clock. Twice she woke up from nightmares, once with a scream. Ted came in and calmed her down. The next morning, Tuesday, Nora had to go to work. Ted wanted to go to the office too, but he was worried about Kara. While he was thinking about it, Kara's phone rang. It was Miranda. Kara put it on speakerphone. "Are you coming to work today?" "Do I have a job?" "Yes, I realize it's a difficult situation." But something needs to be done, and you can't be replaced right away. So despite your stupidity about Byron, I need your job. Kara looked at Ted. He nodded. I can be there in an hour. Good. Come to the house. Go in the back so you don't get caught. Kara met Miranda in the second-floor office. Miranda extended her hand for a handshake and Kara accepted it. Miranda began. I'm curious. Before we get to the point, why Byron was able to get you, I saw your husband. Did he disappoint you? Oh no, but Byron looked so good. Yeah, but he wasn't. It really wasn't that good. I was starting to realize that. Not bad, but no more than at best. He had a tendency to fade. Perhaps you and he haven't reached that stage yet. Perhaps. Well, let's get started. The two of them worked all day, bringing Miranda up to speed. They also considered how to dispose of Byron, but the body hadn't been returned yet. At 6 in the evening, Miranda broke away from her work and asked, Can you stay for dinner? We still have a lot to do. Sure, I have Ted and his girlfriend. So I've heard. Is she pretty? Yeah, and young. He slept with her the first night I left. So they're really connected? Looks like it. My girls like her too. Miranda looked at Kara and smiled. Well, if you need relief, I can lend you one of my boy toys. They know how to behave around a woman. Carabla. Miranda, thank you, but I'm not ready yet. Just let me know. Now that we women are running the company, the guys may have to squeeze in. Is there anything you need? Well, for that matter, a boy toy would be nice. I don't want to break up any families. You're too nice, Kara. They ate, and Kara went home at 10:30. Miranda gave her a substantial raise in her salary. Ted and Nora were interested to see how Kara was doing at work, given the complexity of the situation. Kara described her day and the work she had to do, and she told them about her promotion. So I won't be a burden. Looks like I can support myself. That sounded pretty bleak. Ted said Kara interrupted. Miranda offered me a boy toy to use if I needed it. I turned it down. For now. Nora gasped, really? What do they look like? Ted was a little annoyed by this, but remained silent. Nora, I didn't even know Miranda had them. For the next 6 weeks, Kara worked for Miranda 6 days a week, either in the office or at her house. The work was moving. Ted began to divorce after about 2 weeks. This came as no surprise to Kara or the twins. Miranda hired Kara an attorney, but the details were easy to handle. The parties agreed and signed a few weeks later. The twins stayed in the house with Ted and Nora. Kara didn't so much object to this. She was slowly making progress toward peaceful coexistence with her daughters. They often spent the day off with her. Ted and Nora moved back into the main house. Nora gave up her apartment. In essence, she took on the role of mom to the girls. Sort of. The situation was getting more and more comfortable. One night, Nora and Ted, having finished another pleasurable sex session, pressed up against each other. Nora, do you want to get married? Nora tensed up. She looked up at him. Yes, they kissed. Nora said, I want kids too. She looked at Ted with some trepidation. He put his arm around Nora. Hey, shim him. Taking the diaper change plunge again. Okay. They kissed again. They were married 6 months later. 2 months later, Nora got pregnant. Meanwhile, the police investigation into the notorious murder of a millionaire had reached a dead end. Gradually, the crime disappeared from the public eye. Every now and then, a journalist would bring it up, and then it faded again. The authorities spent a lot of time checking the alibis of everyone they thought had a motive, including the 6 husbands. They came up with nothing. Some had no alibis or weak alibis. But the police had no forensic results from the prints on the rifle or any concrete evidence at all. And there were no witnesses, despite numerous public appeals to people who might have been on a side trail near the shooting. The police checked on Miranda. She was with 2 young men a few miles from the shooting scene. They checked to see if she had ordered the murder, even though the shooting didn't appear to have been professionally executed. They found nothing, probably because there was nothing to find. Their attention to Ted faded quickly. Miles had a very convincing alibi, a traveling salesman. Eventually, the case went into hibernation mode, with the occasional slight reminder from time to time. Soon Kara became absolutely indispensable to Miranda and company. She was smart, enthusiastic, and knew far more about operations than anyone else except for the late Byron. One Saturday afternoon, Miranda and Kara were going out. Kara had a room in the house. She went upstairs to take a shower. She had never gone out to the pool until now. Miranda had no problem with the pool. What bothered her was that Kara had a problem with it. So that Saturday, Miranda caught Kara wiping herself with a towel after her shower. She tossed Kara a rope. "Come with me." Kara was puzzled, but Miranda was the boss. She followed her out. Miranda walked to the door, leading outside to the pool. Kara stopped. Miranda said stiffly, "I have a treat, but you have to go outside to get it." But then she thought, maybe it's about time. She stepped inside. There were 2 lounge chairs by the pool. Miranda walked past them. Kara followed her. There were 2 young men there. Both were naked. Both were beautiful and suspended. One was black, the other white but well-tanned. Kara was stunned. Miranda said, "You haven't slept since the shooting happened. This is Damon and this is Chad. You have a choice, but you have to pick one." Kara stood there looking at the men. She unbuttoned her robe and dropped it to the floor and slowly walked over to Damon, staring at him. "Hello, Damon. My name is Kara." Damon smiled. "It's nice to meet you, Kara. I hope you don't mind." She'd always had some sort of thing about that. Now how could she resist? Why would she resist? Why didn't she do it sooner? Kara and Damon put on quite a show for Miranda and Chad, who were just watching. Kara had more intense feelings than she'd had in years. Damon lasted 15 minutes in eternity. Miranda and Chad rewarded them with applause. And just like that, Kara's fear of the pool was overcome. Kara's life had changed dramatically, but not in a bad way at all. She had her choice of boy toys and she had a job she loved. She spent Sundays with her daughters, and sometimes with Ted and Nora. When Nora gave birth to little Bryce, Kara was thrilled, but a little jealous. Ted and Nora were also very happy. One day when the women were alone, Nora asked Kara about her sex life, and Kara told her. Vividly. That night, Nora's sex with Ted had been exciting. It had subsided a bit since the baby was born. Now Nora was getting back into a rhythm. Every once in a while, Nora and Kara would have another conversation. It was always enough. Kara thought of it as a family service she was happy to do. Some compensation to Ted for her slip-up. Soon little Nikki came along. As the saying goes, all's well that ends well. One evening when all the kids had gone to bed, Robin found herself strolling through the backyard with Ted. She stopped at the guest house and turned to him. "Nora and I sympathize with each other. It's a pleasure." Ted smiled. "You know, at one time you could have had me, but I chose Miles. You know why? I never could figure it out. You have an inner anger, maybe from your parents. You hide it, but it's always been there. And I still love you. Maybe you do. Maybe I do. I rarely think about it. I do sometimes. And yet you've made a good life for yourself and your family. And for Miles and me, too. But Ted, I saw Miles hand you your phone after your bike ride. I did. It took me a while to realize what it meant. You took a hell of a chance, and so did Miles. One hell of a chance." Ted was silent for a while, looking at Robin. "Do you think I should get some counseling?" Robin smiled. "Don't do that. It's you. That's the way it was, and that's the way it's going to be. And remember, Miles and I love you anyway." They left together to join their spouses. Hey listeners, thanks for tuning in to Whimsy Woven Stories. Like the video and drop a comment and hit subscribe for new audio stories every day.